All right, this is episode 4 on this little Honda deal. We've been neglecting it, but we finally got all the pieces in. So instead of hanging loose, hang tight. We'll be right back. So I've been telling everybody to hang loose for so long that I figured I need to tell you to hang tight a little bit, because I don't want you to get so loose you fall off, you know. So all right, so we ended up, I don't know why I did it, but I ordered 10 under bearings for this thing originally, and I think I just assumed we were gonna grind the crank, but man, the crank check's just super nice, and I cleaned it up and polished it, and man, it looks like brand hammer new. So, and it's totally in spec, and we put the bearings in, and I didn't even look at them. I just told Andrew to chunk them in, and I come over here to just check it with a bore mic, and they were like, 8 or 9 thousandths too small. And then I realized what I did. So we finally got some bearings in, and the clearance is just a little more than I would like for it to be. I mean, I'd like to see 2, but it's like 2.5, I think. Let me check it again, and we'll both look at it at the same time. Lord, I need my glasses. Yeah, that's like 2.6. And I think, let me get back here to this second one. I think it might have been a little better. No, it's right at 3 on that one. Let me get it on the back side. But the problem, I mean, it's in spec to the book, but it's a little big, and I'd like it to be a little smaller, but you can't buy, there's no ones available. And I mean, heck, we had a hard time finding standards. It just, it's just the way it is. So, but it's in spec, but I wish it was tighter, but it is in spec, so we're gonna let it go, because it ain't no top fuel hot rod. So we're gonna get the main cap assembly off, and then we'll get started putting this crank in and going with that. Everything we do it for, and usually we're... All right, so we got the indicator set up. Just check the thrust, and it's saying that we have got just a little over 4. Yeah, right at 5. So we got right at 5, so that's good. We will get, yeah, these things have got goofy thread pitches, and man, we ain't got no metric bolts to fit this thing hardly. Let's see. And this engine only uses, it's kind of like a 22R Toyota. It's not in the center though, but it uses only half inserts. So there's no thrust on this side, there's just thrust on the block side of the deal. Which, I mean, I think a lot of foreign cars is like that, I believe, but I know we do a fair amount of, let's see, so we ain't gonna be able to torque that because we can't get to the rods. There's kind of a goofy design. They got all this junk in the way, and this, man, maybe we can get to the rods, but they got all of this in the way, and you don't have a lot of room to get to the connecting rods to torque them. We're just gonna put 2 in it for now till we get the rods sorted out. All right, so I'm fixing to put the pistons on the rods, and there's a couple of different variations of this type of machine, but this one it uses electric coils. I don't know if you can, let's see, if you can see down in there. So it uses electric coils, and so we physically take the connecting rod and put it down in like that to heat the end to expand it so we can slide the wrist pin through, because these are press fit. So most stock stuff is press fit, small block Ford, small block Chevrolet, big block Chevrolet. I mean, most all the GM stuff is press from the factory, and a lot of foreign stuff actually has a floating rod with a bushing and snap rings, but this Civic does not. One thing that is maybe important or confusing that I'll go over is these. So if we look, this rod assembles. So this is the front of the engine. We got an arrow, and this would be the driver's side. And you see right here, we got an oil jet. So that oil jet is spraying on the cylinder wall on the thrust side. So most stuff, if you remember, we talked about how the rods orient on a V8, and normally the bearing tangs would go to the pan rail. Well, most 4-cylinders, the bearing tangs will go to the driver's side pan rail. But on the Civic, it's exactly the opposite. And I've seen a few that are that way, but on a 4-cylinder, the connecting rod is symmetrical. Most of them that I've ever seen are symmetrical. So it doesn't matter about the orientation because of an offset like a V8 or a V6, or a common crank pin V6. But this one matters because of the squirter, which is trying to squirt oil on the thrust side of the cylinder wall. So if you turn it the other way, I mean, it'll work perfectly fine, but you just won't have that jet of oil on the thrust side of the piston. So that matters. So what I always do is I orient all my pistons. If you're doing a V8, I'll orient 4 pistons the correct way and orient 4 rods the correct way, put them on, and then do the other side the opposite way. On this 4-cylinder, I know that I'm going to put them together like this. So I know that I need the oil jet away from me for that orientation to be correct when it's upright. So I got all my pistons laid out with the arrows to the left. I'm going to put all of the rods in the heater with the tangs to me, and that way I know I got all my orientation right. And then the machine has a timer that I don't trust, so I always just use my stopwatch on my phone. And usually these are so small, it's probably not going to take 3 minutes, but most connecting rods, 3 minutes is the optimal time to get the small end expanded enough to slide it together without any trouble. So I usually do 3 minutes, but I probably won't do quite 3 minutes on these, but I'm gonna give it a try. All right, so let's do 2 of these puppies. So this one's hotter than this one just because the coals, you can see the color. So I always start and end with this side. We'll get 2 pistons ready. I clean the bores, I clean the pin, make sure there ain't nothing in the way hanging. And then we wait. And they make some fancy fixtures to do this, and because we need to set the pin location, so it will be nice if the pin was the piston was held in place, and then we could put the rod in, push the wrist pin with like a driver to a rigid stop. So they make a little jig to do that, but they're real expensive. And I learned just to do it by hand, and I've been doing it by hand for 20 years or whatever, 30 years. And I've probably made a boo-boo a handful of times. So I've had good success, but I do need to make something to just be more, so I ain't got to fight with it. It'd make my life easier. Yeah, that's kind of like my wife too. I need to find something for that too, because I have to fight with her all the time. Ain't you got nothing to do productive? All right, so we ride that. Yeah, I think that's. All right, so that's one. And then we're gonna grab number two. All right, there's number two. Man, them's hot tamales. All right, and then we'll put our next two in. Yeah, that was like 2.5 minutes, was it, Andrew?
That was like 3.
Did it make it all the way to 3?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it was after 2.
I thought when I pulled the first one out, it was like 240 or 241. So, and then as that thing cools off, that rod will just shrink right back on that rod, and then it's just there till the end of time. But if anything catches or any trash or anything, it'll stop and you just screwed. And like them little bitty pistons there, Lord of mercy, they souped up lawnmowers, and you won't never get the wristband out without destroying the piston. So I definitely need a better rig than doing it by hand. But like I say, I put on thousands of them, and I've messed up 2 or 3 in 30 years. So it works pretty good by hand. It's just the biggest thing is knowing how to gauge how far to push the wrist pin in to end up with the wrist pin in the center of the piston when the rod's in the center of the piston, and that takes a little practice. But I mean, if you off a 16th either way, it don't make no difference because the pin's long anyway most of the time. But like I say, I'm just making excuses for not have built something to do this yet, because it ain't like I don't own a machine shop in all my free time, that I have. And these things are just absolutely obsolete. You can't buy them. The ones now use propane, and you have to lay the rod down, and it blows 2 flames on the end. And I mean, it works, but I don't like it as good as I like the electric coils. It's just, I don't know, it's just simpler. This thing is all self-contained in this little bitty unit. And luckily I found another one, and I bought it for parts just in case anything happens, because you can't buy any parts for these things anymore as far as I know. I mean, you might find something that you can make work, but you can't call K-Line and buy nothing. All right, we're fixing to go. We're fixing to go. And there's 4 of them. So like this one, it'll be cooled off, and yeah, see, it'll move now. And so what I was talking about, man, that's hot. What I was talking about is, let me get my, so it needs to be centered, or as close to, center as you can get it. So how far, and because you got this play, how far you push the wrist pin in to get the rod and the pin to land in center. I mean, it's just an eyeball thing, and I usually hit it pretty close. But if you make a boo-boo, you know, it's done locked down, and there ain't a whole lot you can do. With a normal, like a V8 piston, I got a special little press that holds on to the rod, and I can move it a little bit if I had to. But this little bitty stuff like this, you just ain't nothing you can do about it. It just is what it is. All right, we're gonna let this cool off where we can handle it, and then we're gonna get some bearings in, and we'll be ready to sock these puppies in the hole. We got all our rings laid out here, so I'm gonna just spot check some ring gaps and make sure we ain't got no red flags. I don't even know what the gap should be on this thing, so little. Oh Lord, it's more than 15, so we ain't got no gappage problem. This thing probably run at 10, if the piston's so little. It's a second ring. They look like NPR rings. They got all the markings like NPR. Oh yeah, it's got plenty of gap. For miles, I just want to make sure. I mean, most of the stock ring stuff has got plenty, but you don't know till you know. All right, the piston is still a little hot, so we gotta take a minute or two. All right, so I got all them loaded up, and I'm gonna load this one on camera. These rings, and a lot of foreign stuff is like that, if I can get it back off. So they use a wire inside the oil rail expander to keep the end in line. So just be aware of that, and you just spread it, you know, gently right over the piston like that, and that's. But a lot of foreign stuff has the wire in it like that. And then these are, you can't see it hardly, but these are Napier second rings with a scraper. And luckily, these have plenty of drain back holes in the, I don't remember about the stock ones, I'd have to look, but I know the LS's have that problem with no, what's the word I'm looking for? No, I say a problem already. So this piston, and we just opened the box, and this piston's got a little bitty dent right there that's deforming the second ring groove, and it's stopping that ring from going in there. So, dang, hang on, let me work on this, I'll be back. Yeah, so it wasn't as bad as it looked like it was. It's still, I feel it just a little bit. Yeah, junk like that happens. I mean, it don't, you know, I hate it, but it does happen. And it don't take just a little old bump. And luckily it's right there on the edge, so it ain't like it's like all down in the ring land. It just something bumped it right there on the edge. And I mean, it could possibly happen here, but I mean, literally, we just opened them when we put them on the rods. But it won't be the first time, and it probably won't be the last time either. All right, so same deal. I stagger 180 degrees, and then, you know, I do my oil band like the spreader this way, and then this way and this way on the rails again. It really don't matter, but like not a lot, but it, you know, it's just the way we do it. You get in the habit of stuff. And luckily I had to go over and do some digging. I didn't know if we was gonna have a ring squeezer that was gonna work with this little bitty turd. All right, let me get my transmission fluid. Getting old. Man, it's just barely small enough. I ain't had to use one of these squeeze types, and I couldn't tell you when. Dang, I can't even see down there. It's all clogged up. My little booties. That's tight right there, little Timmy. I don't know if I'm gonna get in there or not. There we go. Look at there. We're gonna mess around and figure out how to build a Honda for us over with. Oh, strong. Yeah, I mean, I've done other of these things, but I just don't remember them being all closed up quite so bad like that, but maybe they were and I just don't remember it. You remember what size them are? Look at there. All right. That's half the battle. Oh, let me check the deck height, just make sure we ain't got no, yeah. Make sure they ain't give us, I'm pretty sure I checked the deck height on the Piston before when they got here, but you know, it can happen, send the wrong deck height piston, and then you done put it all together and the piston's half a mile down in the hole. I had that happen with a 440 one time. They give me, I guess, truck pistons are shorter than car pistons, I think it is, and they give me truck pistons and I didn't check them and they were all press fit, and I done the whole job and had them all together and put the first one in, and it's like 80 in the hole. I was like, yeah, you sapsucker. Yeah, that's probably not gonna work. So these rod bolts torque at a whopping 23 foot-pounds. That's some serious stuff. But they are itty bitty. No. Yeah, 18 and then 38. 18 and 38. 18 and 38. And then 38 is the final torque. I guess it'll help if I put my stop in. All right, so that gets the rods and the pistons in there. Man, that little bitty thing, I mean, it just, I'm telling you, these 5-horse Briggs and Stratton got more resistance than that. Let's see what the piston protrusion is, if I can find my deck bridge. If you're 2 in the hole, let me check this side to take an average on the wristband. I'm over here in the hole wobbling. Yeah, that's 3, so yeah, it's 2, 2.5. So that's good. I don't remember now, but we didn't take a whole lot off the deck, but we did take some. All right, so the next thing, and I think we'll get into it in this video a little bit. Let me hang on. So this cylinder head, if you remember back at the beginning, this cylinder head was remanufactured at some cylinder head remanufacturing place. And I don't know, because I haven't talked to the customer, but I don't know if they sent the whole entire head with the rocker assembly. I can only assume that they did send the whole rocker assembly, but maybe they didn't, because it looks like the rocker assembly has been blasted and the cylinder head has been blasted. So I can only assume that that whoever remanufactured this thing had the cam, the rockers, the whole head assembly, right? So they got it by, you know, the whole problem with this engine was it didn't have any compression because all the rings were carboned up and glued to the piston. And so they thought it was a cylinder head or head gasket or something, so they had the head remanufactured, put it back on, same problem exists. So the car never run after. And so we popped the rocker assembly off, and the cam is just, it's wiped out. So let me get this seal off. Yeah, that's a brand new seal. So if we look, you can see the coating is gone, and there's like this one, I mean, it's already galled, and these little lobes are, it's and the rocker arms look the same way. They're just galled it all up. And so the problem is, let's see if you can see. Yeah, like, I mean, you can see the pads are just, they're just eat up, some worse than others, but they definitely, like, these pads look really good, but then if you look at that pad, I mean, it's tore all to pieces. This one, this one, this one, this one, that one, that one, that one, this one. So most of these are eat up, right? And I done a little digging around, and you know, there's just not a massive bunch of parts for these things because they're not very popular, and most people just junk them or put another motor in, junkyard or something. So I haven't, as of yet, found a stock replacement camshaft. I found some aftermarket camshafts, but I ain't found no stock replacement camshaft, and I haven't found any replacement rocker arms either. So that's going to be the next hurdle. I mean, I think the head is okay other than that, but we're going to take it apart. I mean, obviously, if they let this go, you know, there may be guide problems there, because a lot of these heads were really known for valve guide problems, and some of these reman places, they'll just run a knurl through to swell it up and then ream it and send it on, you know, and that'll work short term, but it's not a long term fix. So we always just put guides in instead of all that nonsense. So I'm sure we're going to end up having to go through the head. So that'll be, I think everything else is pretty much done. So the next deal, we're going to go through the head, and I'm going to try to find a cam for this thing. It is a D16Y8. So if you have a good cam and some rocker arms for one of these jewels in your back pocket, send me a message because I need one for sure. All right, I think we're gonna wrap up this episode there. Again, the next episode, we'll get this head apart and check all the pieces. And I think we need to wash a few of the little trinket parts. But other than that, I think we pretty much get this head done and we can sort of wrap it up, I hope. So hang tight, and we will get the next episode up as soon as possible. If you need anything, PowellMachineInc.com. We appreciate you. We'll see you on the next one.
You're learning so many important things, and I'm so proud of you.